It was Monday, March 13th, 1995 in São Paulo, Brazil. The morning sun shone through the big windows in Nelson Sakaguchi's small office on Avenida Paulista. Outside, the busy city of São Paulo buzzed with noise. Cars honked, street vendors sold snacks, and busy people hurried along. Nelson was a smart man who worked at Banco Noroeste. He had salt and pepper hair and wore a nice suit. His desk was cluttered with papers and charts. As he sipped his third cup of hot espresso, he hoped to secure a significant deal for his bank. The bank was in need of a win, and Nelson was eager to deliver one. At 9:47 a.m., the fax machine in the corner beeped and buzzed. Nelson glanced at the fax. He had many faxes from far away. Most were not special, but this one looked different. It had a stamp from Nigeria's Ministry of Aviation. The fax said, "Urgent. Investment opportunity in Abuja International Airport project." It was signed by a man called Dr. Turistia William. Nelson was curious. He read the fax carefully. The message said that Nigeria planned to build a new airport in Abuja, their new capital. The project was to cost about $250 million. The fax said that if his bank invested, they could get their money back quickly. There was also a promise of a 10% commission, $10 million, for the bank manager who helped make the deal. Nelson's eyes grew wide. This seemed like a very big chance. In Nigeria, there lived a man named Emmanuel Nwude, also known by another name, Emmanuel Nwude. He was a man with big dreams and a clever mind, but unfortunately, he chose to use his talents for dishonest means. Emmanuel was an ordinary man, but he had one goal that drove him. He wanted to be rich. He dreamed of living a life of luxury with mansions, expensive cars, and piles of money, and he was willing to do anything to achieve that dream. Emmanuel worked in a bank in Nigeria called Union Bank of Nigeria. Though his job wasn't bad, he was far from wealthy. However, his mind was always racing with ideas about how he could become rich. He thought of many ways to achieve this wealth, but his biggest and most dangerous idea came in 1995, when he began planning a massive scam. The scam started when Emmanuel decided to impersonate a very important figure in Nigeria's financial world, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Paul Ogwuma. By pretending to be the governor, Emmanuel would convince a foreign bank to send him millions of dollars, believing it was a legitimate business deal. He was not working alone. He brought in 4 other people who also worked in banks. Together, they formed a team of skilled fraudsters who would use their knowledge of the banking system to execute a brilliant scam. The plan they came up with was simple, but brilliant. Emmanuel, pretending to be the governor, contacted a senior executive at a Brazilian bank called Banco Noroeste. The person he contacted was Mr. Nelson Sakaguchi, a high-ranking official in the bank. Emmanuel told Mr. Sakaguchi that Nigeria needed money to fund a massive airport project in Abuja, Nigeria's capital city. The project would cost $389 million, and Nigeria was looking for investors from all over the world to help finance it. Emmanuel made it sound very real. He told Mr. Sakaguchi that the Nigerian government was ready to build a new airport in Abuja, a growing city with lots of potential. The project sounded like an excellent investment. He even promised that if the bank helped finance it, Mr. Sakaguchi would receive a $10 million reward for his part in the deal. This offer excited Mr. Sakaguchi, who saw it as a golden opportunity to make a big profit for his bank and himself. However, at this point, Mr. Sakaguchi did not know that he was being lied to. Emmanuel was not the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, and the airport project he spoke of didn't even exist. Emmanuel was simply pretending to be an important official, using fake documents and false promises to trick the bank. Despite this, Mr. Sakaguchi believed what he was told, because everything sounded official. The offer seemed too good to pass up, and he trusted the voice on the phone. What made this scam so clever was how Emmanuel and his team made the whole thing look legitimate. They used a fax machine, which was widely trusted at the time, to send official-looking documents to the Brazilian bank. These papers appeared to be sent directly from the Nigerian Ministry of Aviation, signed by someone with an important name, Turistia William. The message explained that Nigeria needed help with funding a new airport. and it urged the bank to act quickly before another institution took the opportunity. This created a sense of urgency that pushed Mr. Sakaguchi into believing that the project was real. Soon after receiving the facts, Mr. Sakaguchi received a phone call from the fake governor, Emmanuel. With a voice that sounded very official, Emmanuel continued the story, emphasizing that the project would cost $250 million and promising the $10 million reward for the bank's involvement. Mr. Sakaguchi was convinced that he had stumbled upon an excellent investment opportunity. He thought the airport would be profitable, and the $10 million reward was an offer he couldn't refuse. With that, he agreed to proceed. Emmanuel and his team then suggested that Mr. Sakaguchi come to London for an in-person meeting. The idea was to make the deal seem even more official and to convince Mr. Sakaguchi that everything was genuine. They knew that if they met face-to-face, it would be harder for Mr. Sakaguchi to question the deal. London was chosen as the meeting place because it was far from both Brazil and Nigeria, making it a neutral ground. When Mr. Sakaguchi arrived in London, he was greeted by Emmanuel and his team. They were all dressed in fancy clothes, stayed in expensive hotels, and made everything look as official as possible. Emmanuel pretended to be the governor of the central bank, one of his helpers pretended to be the deputy governor, and another one posed as a director from the Ministry of Aviation. They even showed Mr. Sakaguchi a fake map of where the airport would be built, complete with photos of Emmanuel with Nigerian leaders to back up their story. It all looked too real to question. At the meeting, the fake team explained that the airport project was secret and would not begin for several years. However, they told Mr. Sakaguchi that they needed a deposit to show that they were serious about moving forward with the deal. Feeling the pressure to act quickly and secure the deal, Mr. Sakaguchi agreed to send a deposit of $3 million. Though he had some doubts, the promise of a massive return was enough to push him into action. Over the next 3 years, Mr. Sakaguchi continued to send money. He transferred smaller amounts of money, usually under $6 million each time, to avoid raising suspicions within his own bank. The money was sent to different countries, including the United States, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, and Hong Kong. Each time, Emmanuel and his team provided more fake documents and pictures to make it seem like the project was moving forward. The funds were hidden through 17 different Nigerian banks, making it difficult to trace where the money was going. Emmanuel and his team, all from a banking background, found themselves involved in a highly suspicious and covert operation that began years earlier. They had been entrusted with a large sum of money to fund a major airport project in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. However, instead of using the money for construction, they had funneled it into real estate investments across Nigeria and around the globe, as well as purchasing shares in various companies. For years, this operation remained under the radar, successfully hidden from all parties involved. But it would take a monumental event to expose their massive fraud. That event came when Santander Bank, the largest bank in Spain, showed interest in acquiring Noroeste Bank. This potential acquisition was a lengthy and intricate process, and as part of the review, a joint board was set up to assess the bank's assets. To their shock, they discovered that a third of Noroeste's capital, hundreds of millions of dollars, was missing. The bank's management, led by Nelson Sakaguchi, had to explain the disappearance. Sakaguchi admitted that he had made an undisclosed deal with the Nigerian government for the airport project, transferring $242 million over 3 years without informing the board. Naturally, the board was astounded. Sakaguchi had managed the bank faithfully for 14 years, and the fact that he made such a huge financial move without the board's knowledge raised red flags. An investigation committee was immediately formed, but tracking the money was complicated by the network of banks across various countries. Eventually, the trail led to Nigeria, a country lacking robust financial controls, which slowed the investigation significantly. After much pressure from Western banks, Nigerian banks cooperated and revealed the identities of Emmanuel and his crew. However, Nigeria's weak financial laws meant that these men were unlikely to face repercussions. Emmanuel and his associates remained free, possibly protected by bribes to local officials. Despite this, Noroeste was eventually sold to Santander, but the price was much lower than its true value due to the missing funds. Sakaguchi was tried for financial fraud and money laundering in Switzerland and was sentenced to several years in prison. The bank's owners did not give up on recovering their losses, hiring lawyers in various countries to help them reclaim what they could. However, most of the money and assets were in Nigeria, and the Nigerian government proved to be uncooperative. The case dragged on, unresolved. That was until 2003, when Nigeria's new president, Olusegun Obasanjo, created the Financial Crimes Commission. In 2004, the commission began investigating Emmanuel and his crew. 5 members of the group were arrested, but one, Emmanuel, was still at large. Some believe that the 6th member's death in a car accident during the investigation was not an accident at all, but a targeted assassination orchestrated by Emmanuel, who feared the individual might expose the operation for a lighter sentence. Eventually, Emmanuel and the remaining 4 were arrested, and their trial began in Abuja. Emmanuel tried to manipulate the trial by bribing officials and jurors, but the judge, realizing he had lost control, transferred the case to Lagos. Despite the move, Emmanuel continued his bribery attempts, even trying to bribe the head of the Financial Crimes Commission. When a bomb threat was made during the trial, it was quickly investigated and found to be a hoax, believed to have been directed by Emmanuel in an attempt to escape. However, his plot failed, and the trial continued. During the proceedings, prosecutors offered Emmanuel a deal. If he returned at least $80 million, they would consider a reduced sentence. Emmanuel, unwilling to part with more than $40 million, refused the offer. Eventually, the public prosecutor warned him that if he did not return at least $80 million, he would lose the chance for a lighter sentence. As pressure mounted, an unexpected witness appeared in the courtroom, Nelson Sakaguchi, the former bank director. Sakaguchi, embarrassed but compelled to speak, revealed the full extent of Emmanuel's crimes. Sakaguchi testified that Emmanuel had impersonated the governor of Nigeria's central bank to secure the $242 million, and he provided photographs, documents, and communications between them that confirmed the fraudulent activities. With this testimony, the evidence against Emmanuel became undeniable. The prosecutors then increased their demands. Emmanuel had to return at least $120 million, plus a $10 million fine payable to the Nigerian government. Left with no other option, Emmanuel reluctantly agreed, but the deal allowed him a 5-year prison sentence. However, Emmanuel served less than 2 years before he began challenging the government, claiming they had seized more property than the agreed-upon amount. Through bribes, Emmanuel managed to recover around $50 million in assets. Emmanuel's legal battles didn't stop there. Despite his conviction, he lived comfortably for many years, continuing his fraudulent activities until 2016. This time, it wasn't a financial scam that landed him in trouble, but a murder charge. It was reported that Emmanuel was involved in a dispute over land in one of his regions. In a violent revenge, he sent 200 of his followers to attack the landowners, leading to the death of a security guard and injuries to several police officers. Emmanuel was arrested once more, this time for conspiracy to commit murder. However, given Emmanuel's track record of manipulation and bribes, it's unlikely he would serve a long sentence for this charge either. Many speculate that he is still enjoying a lavish life, free from the consequences of his actions. Despite numerous efforts to bring him to justice, Emmanuel's empire of corruption and fraud seems to have weathered every storm, leaving behind a trail of victims, lost fortunes, and unanswered questions. Ultimately, Emmanuel's life serves as a powerful example of how ambition, when unchecked by morality, can lead to destruction. While he may have been able to enjoy some luxuries after his prison sentence, the truth remains that his criminal past will always haunt him, no matter how many houses or treasures he accumulated along the way. His story serves as a warning. No matter how convincing the story or how legitimate the offer appears, there are always consequences to fraud, and the truth will eventually be revealed. Thanks for joining me on this journey through the story of Emmanuel Nwude's bold scam and his rise and fall. His story is a reminder of how one person's ambition can lead to consequences that impact many lives. If you found this tale intriguing, Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that dig into the darker sides of history and human nature. See you in the next one.